Hello, hello. Welcome back. Thank you so much. Excited to be speaking again for this section of the SmartCon. So here we're going to be talking about top 5 tips for smart contract engineering productivity. So a lot of us are engineers. We have a lot of tips for for regular software engineering productivity tips, but there's some additional tips for us to be even more effective, even better smart contract and blockchain engineer. So once again, for those of you who do not know, my name is Patrick Collins. I'm a developer advocate on Chainlink Labs, and this is what I do. I love doing smart contract work. I love working in the blockchain space. I love digesting all this complicated information and trying to give it out in more easily to understand terms, because at the end of the day, this stuff, it's new, and that's really it. And once we kind of get our hands around it, it all starts to make a lot more sense. So by productivity here, I mean, getting more done faster, right? So we don't want to just code faster. We don't want to just type faster. We don't want to just get bad work faster. We want more effective code done faster. So that's what I mean by productivity. And here's our agenda that we will be walking through. We will be talking about using some of these smart contract development frameworks. Some of them just gave talks. So if you missed that, definitely go back and watch the YouTube videos when they when they come out. Writing tests, of course, is incredibly important. Using a development chain, using external proven code, and then engaging in the community and engaging in these Q&A forums. So the first tip here, 1,100% is use, a smart contract development framework. This shouldn't come as a surprise for a lot of people who got into this space, because oftentimes the tool used to teach people blockchain, teach people Solidity is going to be some type of framework already, right? Like Remix, for example. These are so fantastic because they allow us to do easy integration, especially if we work with some of the frameworks that I'm going to talk about in a second that use tools like Python, like JavaScript, like Bash, because they'll have all the traditional software engineering testing pieces already baked in, right? If you're used to Python, you don't have to change the way you test your code. You can just test your code the exact same way you would test any Python. You don't have to test your smart contracts in a different way. Same thing with JavaScript, and there's some other fantastic frameworks that use maybe even Bash or some other different types, or Java or some other coding languages. This makes our integration much easier, makes our testing much easier. Smart contract development frameworks additionally allow us to work with source control a lot easier, right? Obviously, source control like GitHub, GitLabs makes our lives much better as software engineers. And the same is true for working with smart contracts. We want to work with source control. We want to understand how we can roll back, and we can see our Git history, and we can see our Git logs. The other main advantage of using these frameworks is that these languages are incredibly well supported, right? If you run into an issue with Python with your testing, you can Google it, and you're highly likely to get an answer, get a reason why you're running into that bug, you're running into that issue. With Solidity being new, in smart contracts and Viper and everything, and Rust and everything kind of in this smart contract space being newer, it can be a little bit harder to find, hey, has somebody done this before? Is this a common error that other people get? Versus, using one of these traditional technologies for your framework, like Python, like JavaScript, that's going to be a lot easier. And additionally, this is what all the pros use. All the professional platforms, they all use a smart contract developer framework. So some of these that the pros do use are going to be Brownie, Hardhat, and Truffle. So we just had Truffle speak recently. These are some of I call these the big 3. These are some of the most powerful frameworks out here that are going to make our lives a lot easier. Brownie obviously is a Python package, and then Hardhat and Truffle are JavaScript and TypeScript as well, which allows you to just work with your Node.js frameworks and connect everything really, really easily. So if you look at DeFi Pulse or DeFi Llama, and you look at the top 50 projects in there, they're all using one of these frameworks, all of them. So if you're looking for, hey, like, how can I get started quickly? How can I get started easily? What are the best protocols using? You're looking at them. You're looking at them. This is going to make your life substantially better and substantially more productive. Now, I do want to have a note on Remix. Remix is absolutely well and beyond what I think one of the best starter web IDEs for getting into the space and working with the space. However, I think once you transition to bigger projects, more files, more people working on it at the same time, it starts to become a little bit more cumbersome to work with. So I think I think pretty much everybody should start with Remix. I think Remix is a phenomenal tool, but I'm also going to highly recommend that people migrate to something like Hardhat, something like this source control, or excuse me, like Truffle, Brownie, something that has this source control after they've kind of figured out their bearings with Remix. Although I do have to note, Remix has recently come out with a ton of fantastic plugins and a ton of fantastic pieces of support. And I think the line between one of these more traditional frameworks and Remix is going to blur fairly soon. So in any case, fantastic tool. But yeah, I'm going to highly recommend working with Hardhat or Truffle or Brownie. But it looks like soon Remix and Hardhat or Truffle might be more similar than we thought. So first tip, use smart contract development framework. Next, writing tests early and often. So this is kind of this is a tip that just kind of applies to everybody in software engineering. However, it provides tips specifically for smart contract development, right? So you're going to have to do less work. These tests provide documentation. You're going to have easier debugging, easier contribution, and your sleep easier. Smart contracts are these immutable pieces of code, right? And if you write some function and it doesn't work, and you keep writing your functions and you keep writing the rest of your contract, when you go to test it later on and that function doesn't work, everything else is going to get everything else is going to be broken. You want to have to refactor everything, and you're going to end up doing way more work to fix all the stuff that didn't work in the first place. So writing tests early and often is incredibly important, especially in this space. And it's additionally going to give you more speed and more productivity when it comes to getting that audit, when it comes to you moving from your development world to the real world, to going mainnet, to going live. So the text might be a little small here, but this is a tweet thread from Tincho. He works on the Open Zeppelin platform. And he gives this long thread about helping your smart contract platforms get audited. And his third tip here is saying, test. Countless critical vulns can be saved with simple unit tests. Also, tests let us understand intended behavior. A trick some auditors use: if a public function is not being called in the tests, that's where they aim their guns. Yes, it really works to find bugs. So if you have a function and there's no test on it, auditors are literally going to say, okay, how can I break your application because you didn't put any tests on this function? So it's going to save you in a security aspect as well. It's going to save you time with the auditors. And additionally, and most importantly, it's going to tell the auditors, hey, this is what the intended result of this function call is. So you're going to save yourself a ton of time. Additionally, it makes working together, working with the open source community much easier, because other people can see, okay, this is what you're looking to do. This is what you're supposed to do. And especially in our open sourced development, decentralized world where collaboration is essential, having other people be able to come in and contribute to your project easily is crucial. And additionally, this makes us sleep easier. So when your code is tested, when your smart contracts are tested, you won't have to get that horrible message at 2 a.m. from a white hat hacker saying, hey, let's chat. You'll be able to actually get a good night's sleep and not have to wake up to those texts. And then, of course, writing tests is you'll find bugs, right? You'll find bugs earlier. You'll find them more often. And this is good because triaging and fixing an issue before it becomes an issue is a lot more productive. You'll be a lot faster. You'll be a lot more successful than trying to fix something when it's already launched, especially in the smart contract world where depending on how you code it, if you launch it, it could be like that forever because of the nature of smart contracts. So write tests, incredibly important. Not only will save your life and save your smart contract developing journey, but you'll be way more productive and way faster, excuse me. Third tip, use a development chain / a virtual node. So we heard from Ganache, Truffle. We heard from Nick from Truffle and Ganache, them talking about version 7, I believe, which I'm incredibly excited about. They said they're doing some refactoring to make everything faster, which gets me very excited. Working with these development chains, you're going to actually be able to test everything that you're doing in a simulated blockchain environment. So a lot of people, they get into the space, they go, oh, okay, cool. I'm going to jump on, I'm going to deploy everything to a test net. That's great. That's great for an integration test, but that should really be your last step. The last step should be deploying to one of these test nets because you have to wait for all those blocks to be mined. It's going to be hard for you to iterate quickly on your contracts. So you're going to want to use something like Ganache, something like Hard Hat's built-in virtual node to be much faster. All the frameworks that we mentioned before have some of these tools built in, like Truffle uses Ganache, Hard Hat uses the Hard Hat runtime environment, and Brownie uses Ganache, and it looks like they're actually coming out with a Hard Hat integration as well. So it looks like Brownie's using both. So use these development chains. These are absolutely critical for running your tests. And a little bit of a note, especially on this, there's kind of a meme in the industry about saying like test and prod, like, oh, I test and prod, I don't test and prod. All of the applications, all the serious professional applications write these tests and they work on these development chains. They don't just send it to mainnet, right? A lot of these, it's kind of been immortalized as this big meme, but even when people say test and prod, it's not intended to be, saying, hey, I don't test, I don't work with the development chain. It's really, when they say that, they're really saying, hey, this is brand new stuff. This is a new industry, use at your own risk. Everybody absolutely writes tests and they work with these development chains. They work in these simulated environments. Do not think that, okay, people who say they test and prod means they do not test. So write tests, use these development chains. It's incredibly, incredibly important. Tip number 4, use proven external contracts. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, okay? A lot of people have done a lot of the things that you're looking to do at this point, whether it's ERC20s, whether it's upgradable contracts, whether it's NFTs. You don't have to rewrite those entire contracts, right? We live in this decentralized, this open source environment where a lot of these tools, where a lot of these contracts are already built. I'm a big fan of using Open Zeppelin contracts in a lot of my package. They have some fantastic contracts you can just import. They've got a lot of different tools you can use to import them into Hard Hat, into Brownie, into Truffle, into whatever. And it makes life a lot easier. So I often give the example of like an ERC20. An ERC20 using Open Zeppelin code is maybe about 10 lines of code. Writing it from scratch is maybe 100 lines of code. So you're saving yourself a ton of time. And additionally, of course, using something like Chainlink to get your data, to get your external computation, and just importing them and using the packages that are readily available to you instead of having to reinvent the wheel every time, right? You don't have to go out and figure out how to, you don't have to go out and figure out how to get all the data yourself. It's already there. It's on-chain, it's decentralized, and you can grab it. Additionally, that external computation, you can work with node operators, you can look into the documentation and see what you can grab. So don't reinvent the wheel here. Use these proven external, these battle-tested external contracts. And then last but not least, you want to engage in these Q&A forums, engage in the community. I have this Google logo here because oftentimes when people ask me what I do, I will jokingly say, I am a professional Googler. I am a search wizard. I'm excellent at Googling things and searching the internet for the answer that I'm trying to get. And this is incredibly important because this actually empowers us to go out and find answers ourselves, and engage with the community and engage in all these forums that offer these benefits for us to understand what we're trying to learn. Stack Exchange ETH is a fantastic place for a ton of the community a ton of everybody in the smart contract community to come ask questions about Ethers, Brownie, Solidity, Viper, Hard Hat, Truffle, you name it, right? It's a place where people can collaborate, ask questions and answers. And oftentimes I find myself sometimes scrolling through the questions and maybe I know an answer to one and I'll answer something. And in my research of those questions, I'll actually learn more. And I'll be like, well, actually, I never thought about that. And I'll become a better smart contract engineer myself. But in any case, it makes me much faster, much more productive as a software engineer, because instead of scrolling the internet forever and never actually finding my answer, I can just engage in one of these Q&A forums like Stack Exchange ETH, like Stack Overflow, maybe even make an issue on one of these repos and actually interact with a human being, but interact with them in a way where our work is leveraged, right? If we immortalize it on one of these Q&A forums like Stack Exchange, like GitHub, anytime anybody else runs into this issue, they will have us to thank, that they will be able to solve it very easily. So engaging in these Q&A forums will save you a ton of time and be fantastic for your productivity. In addition, sometimes jumping into the group's discords are going to be incredibly helpful. So I know the text is a little bit small here, but they'll even, what I often do is say, hey, come to the Discord, ask a question, and drop your links to Stack Overflow or Stack Exchange ETH. That way you can get more eyes on your Q&A forum questions, but you can still engage in the community in a little bit more informal manner, right? So these Q&A forums are often much more formal with a much more rigorous question and answer. You got to have all your ducks in a row versus something like a Discord where you can be a little bit more loose with it and try to get your head around the idea, interact with the community, network and meet people and go from there. And that's the other huge piece here is engaging with the community, having a network of people that you can talk to about all this, amazing new stuff in the smart contract world will make you more productive as an engineer. You can lean on some people, you can have this network to grow. So with that too, I'm going to highly recommend that you all check out the Chainlink Discord. It is a fantastic community for smart contract engineers. People working with Chainlink alike could just talk about whatever. Pretty much most groups have some type of Discord, so it's just a fantastic place to connect and get on board and work with people. And a quick bonus here, because this is more than 5, and I know I said I would only do 5, but I'll stop with these bonus ones here. I'm a big human performance junkie, if that's even a thing. I love trying to figure out how I can be more productive, how I can be better as a software engineer and just as a human being in general. Just a couple of quick bonuses. Number one is going to be get into like a deep work or a flow state. And work without interruptions while you're in that deep work. You're going to be much more productive if you get into a deep state than if you're letting your Discord pop up, you're letting Slack pop up, and you're answering texts halfway through. Because every time you change your focus, you have to refocus, and that actually takes time. And that's basically kind of like a focus entropy. You're wasting time switching your focus. Taking breaks is incredibly important. I'm a big fan of the Pomodoro technique, for those of you who are familiar with it. They've done some studies, and they showed that working for 52 minutes and then taking a 17-minute break is the optimal focus amount of time. So definitely take breaks. If you've gone straight for 3 hours, there's a good chance that you're starting to add 2 + 2 and getting donkey. So take some breaks, relax your brain as a muscle, and you can get back into it. Have a CI/CD pipeline. This goes back to kind of testing. CI/CD stands for continuous integration, continuous deployment. So do your testing so that you don't have to go back and redo everything. And then all the other typical software engineering tips, whether this is pure code, rubber duck. There's all these different tips that will make you a more productive software engineer, more productive human being, and just better at everything you do. So thank you so much. These have been my 5 tips.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Patrick. I don't know about everyone else, but I'm feeling more productive already. Looking at the chat, a lot of developers have decided that instead of testing, they're just going to relabel all of their bugs features, and they think that will just solve most of their productivity problems. But you've given us a lot of great tips for both beginners and experts alike.